When you arrive at a pre-Rift event, you'll be handed a random Spiritforged champion kit along with 5 boosters. If you wanna know which decks the cards in those champion kits build towards, or if you wanna trade yours with a friend after the event and be sure that you're offering them a balanced deal, this video is for you. I'm Simon from Games Deconstructed, and let's get started! There's 6 different champion kits you can get at a pre-Rift event, and I'll be going through each and every one of them to tell you exactly which cards see mainstream play, which ones might be niche options like sideboard inclusions or spicy one-offs, and which haven't yet found a home on the competitive scene. So, each champion pack includes 15 unique cards. There's a legend at the helm of each of them, one of Renata, Jax, Lucian, Ezreal, Rek'sai or Irelia, a chosen champion of the same name, 12 one-off cards for you to put in your main deck, and a battlefield. Now in terms of the rarity makeup, the 12 main deck cards in each deck follow the same pattern. There's 4 uncommons, 8 commons. Each of the chosen champions is a rare, and so is every legend. So the decks are balanced on the rarity front, and there isn't a difference in terms of what rarities you'll see inside. The likelihood of opening these cards when you open boosters is the same for every kit. So the only factor differentiating them is which decks these cards might slot into, and if there are any. Starting with Renata. The legend herself hasn't seen much success in tournament play thus far, but the cards in her champion pack are quite solid. Wages of Pain, Honest Broker, Blood Money are usually played as 3-offs in Spell Victor, which is a solid tier 2 deck, and quite a cheap one to build as well. That same deck might also run a couple more cards from Renata's pack. Renata Industrialist I've seen in a sideboard or two. Pickpocket is a counter to Seals, mostly targeting Miracle Draven, and it was run main deck in the Victor list that achieved a 2nd place finish in the 100 plus player Wuxi City Challenge. Chemtech Cask is also a niche inclusion in Spell Victor, played in the list that got 3rd place in the Guangzhou Challenge. And apart from Spell Victor, Plundering Poro is a consideration in Kaisa, included in the top 16 list from the Fuzhou Regional among others, and is generally a 2-drop you'll be happy to have in most decks in these colors, so it will be useful somewhere, for sure. Power Nexus is played as one of the battlefields in certain Draven lists, including a top 16 one from Fuzhou, and one that got 2nd in the Hefei City Challenge. Definitely a battlefield that we'll see testing in at least a couple of decks. Finally, the copy of Guard's exclamation mark sees play in Azir, which is a niche playable deck with a single entry in the Fuzhou Regional Top 32, but one which I think will pop up here and there during Spiritforged season. I think it's very much underrated and a very fun deck to play. So overall, even if the legend herself might be slightly off meta, the commons and uncommons offered in Renata's kit are very solid. A good number of them contribute to the same deck as well, Spell Victor. Jax is kind of in a similar boat in that we haven't seen much of the Grandmaster at Arms himself, but the cards in his pack go into a couple of different decks that share his colors. Brutalizer, Doran's Blade and Thwonk would all slot nicely into an Azir list, should you want to build one of course. Doran's Blade was played by the Fiora list that showed up in the Fuzhou Regional Finals, while other Fioras, like the 3rd place in the most recent Runes and Rift, could include something like Sea Monkey. Ornn's Forge is another Azir option, and Hex Drinker is played in Lucian, which I view in a similar light to Azir. It's a deck that shows a bit more promise than its results thus far would indicate. Jax Unmatched was included in some of the Jax lists that I've played against online, but generally at a lower rate than Jax Unrelenting, and we haven't seen a truly competitive showing from either of the Jaxes thus far, so it's kind of meh. Overall, if I wanted to build upon the cards I pull from the Jax pack, I'd look towards building Azir, probably. Lucian marks a slight improvement compared to the previous two, as the chosen champion in the pack is actually a playable rare, and likely will be a card to trade for as opposed to something you pull from your LGS's bulk bin. So Lucian Merciless is not only played in the few Lucian decks that we've seen do well in events, but the Fiora list from Fuzhou Finals also plays 3 copies. Other cards in the pack also show up in the same Fiora list. Punch First, Warmog's Armor, Doran's Blade, Sunken Temple on the battlefield's front, Gem Jammer, which is a profoundly unserious name for a card, and Angle Shot are both represented in a number of Draven lists. Finally, the legend could be the start of a niche-playable Lucian aggro deck, which I think might be tier 2. This defines the Lucian pack as a decent start towards building either himself or a Fiora list, and Fiora has a lot of eyes on her at the moment. This is followed by Ezreal, which will mark a series of chosen champions best described as right name, wrong color. And that's because the deck is helmed by blue Ezreal as opposed to purple Ezreal. And while the second of the two is a contender for the strongest Spiritforged unit overall, and will likely be a chase card, he is sadly not present in the deck. As for the other cards here, Wages of Pain and Ravenbloom Conservatory are Spell Victor cards, Frigid Touch is an Ezreal card, and Ezreal is kind of on the Azir Lucian level of popularity right now. Plundering Poro is decent, as we've already discussed, and one interesting addition here is called Shot. Quite a hyped card for a card at the common rarity, and it sees a decent amount of play not only in Ezreal, but most importantly in a number of Draven lists, especially the slightly newer Miracle Draven. Overall, Ezreal combines a playable legend for a tier 2 deck with a small number of okay commons that belong in a couple different decks. The Rek'sai pack is in a kind of similar place to Renata and Jax. We haven't seen that many lists featuring the Void Burrower in tournaments, and the ones that I've personally played against use the other champion unit, much like was the case with Ezreal, so yellow Rek'sai isn't especially exciting for the time being. As for the other cards, BF Sword playable in Azir and Fiora, including the Fuzhou Finals Fiora, Blood Rush and Bushwhack in Draven, Drag Under in Spell Victor. Rek'Sai Legend and the Void Hatchling might see play if someone cooks up a Rek'Sai build that's competitive, but for the time being, the Rek'Sai pack holds a rare that's nothing to write home about and just a small number of useful commons and uncommons. Finally, the last inclusion on our list, Irelia. For the champion, it's another case of right name, wrong color. Irelia decks are comfortably the third most represented at Spiritforged tournaments thus far, but 100% of the ones I've seen feature Irelia Fervent instead of Irelia Graceful, which is part of the champion kit. As for the other cards in the deck, Not So Fast is a definite inclusion in both Irelia and sometimes Azir, Stella Corn Herder and Lonely Poro belong in Irelia decks that don't go all in on just using the champion unit, and Treasure Hunter is an overall great 2-drop, playable in Ani, like the top 16 Ani at the Fuzhou Regional, some more mid-range Irelia builds, a subset of Dravens, and perhaps Sivir. The Battlefield Treasure Hoard is an occasional Draven or Spell Victor inclusion, seen in the Draven list that won Hefei and the Spell Victor list from Guangzhou. So overall, what I gather from this analysis is that these packs are quite well balanced against each other, both in terms of rarity, which is of course the exact same for every single pack, but also in terms of the card's playability and chasiness. I guess that's what I would call the trait of being a chase card. And luckily there isn't a huge discrepancy on that front in terms of the value that these packs provide. It's not like you get an $80 purple Ezreal from one and a $0 yellow Rek'Sai in the same slot from another. And the cards in them that currently see play are mostly cards that you'll be finding in your LGS's bulk bins after like a month post-expansion. So generally, I would view these cards purely as a conduit for you to have fun and not as some sort of card acquisition loot box. Apart from perhaps the Lucian one, it doesn't matter in the slightest from a material perspective which one you pull, as long as you have fun building a strategy around it at the pre-Rift event. I've been Simon from Games Deconstructed. Let me know in the comments which pack you hope to pull at your pre-Rift event. And a huge thank you goes to the Patreon supporters over on patreon.com/gamesdeconstructed, especially Anna Schultz, Ola Brynner, and good luck. Thanks a lot for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.